Age of Ultron is a concept that I think is really cool, and I like this whole setup, but I don't think it was used well. So the story is set in a world where Ultron has taken over everything. He's killed most of the human population, including heroes, and he's just trying to get rid of the last few shreds of resistance. That is a cool idea. I like this setup. The heroes are in their lowest spot they could possibly be. Most of the people they know are dead, and they don't have any of the resources they would normally have. That's a cool setup. The resistance, has not a lot of hope, and they finally do get some in the form of Spider-Man. Spider-Man is being held hostage by the Owl, who's trying to trade him to Ultron to make a deal, I guess. But thankfully, Hawkeye's there and saves his life, which gives them at least a small victory and a small glimmer of hope. Thanks to information gathered from Spider-Man while he was captured by the Owl, they realize that Ultron seemingly wants people of interest. That's why he was being held captive, so he can be given to Ultron. Thanks to the info, they use She-Hulk and Luke Cage to pretend to offer one of them as a sacrifice, and they find Vision. And Vision is basically the conduit for Ultron from the future. So now we know all of these evil Ultrons, they're not our Ultron from here, so there's no one to be here necessarily. They're all in the future. And in the background of all this, we also see Taskmaster, Black Panther, Red Hulk, Black Widow, and Moon Knight all kind of, just scavenging their way through the wastelands. And we eventually have them all meet back together, but right now that's not happening. Luke Cage basically has to sacrifice his entire body and eventually gets to the Savage Lands, where all the other heroes have also decided to go because it's like the one place you can go where there's no technology. And from a dying Luke Cage, we find out the information I told you. Ultron's in the future. They need to get there. And luckily enough, there was another Nick Fury stash of tech. They grab it, and here's where it kind of devolves for me, and where I don't like this, when I start disliking the story. Their plan that they devise is to go to the future and fight the most powerful incarnation of Ultron. The Ultron that's already destroyed this timeline, this world, is already basically gone because of this Ultron, and they're gonna go to where he's the most powerful. And they even mention how it's a dumb idea because by the time they get there, Ultron will have known what they're doing. Like, there's no way you could be invisible to Ultron in a world where he's completely everything. But that's the plan. And so, from this point on, the thing that throws me off is that it becomes a completely different story. It's no longer this world. This world that, you become invested in. This is already, issue 4 or 5, and all of a sudden, it becomes something different. And if you're reading any of the tie-in books, almost all of them are set within this, dystopia. And they're really good. The Avengers one, set in Britain, was good. I liked all the nods to old, British TV shows I've never seen. I like the fact that it's magic versus technology. That's not something that's ever brought up in the main book itself. The Spider-Man's good, even though it contradicts the main book, because in the Spider-Man tie-in book, it's Superior Spider-Man, not Peter Parker. This one firmly establishes it's Peter Parker. But in the tie-in book, it is again Otto Octavius in Peter's body. So those interesting stories are here. They can be told. They could incorporate more of that into the main books, but it's just not there. And then it completely devolves into a buddy cop thing with the Invisible Woman and Wolverine having to go through the past and take care of Hank Pym somehow so he would never invent Ultron. Of course, things mess up. They create another alternate timeline, one where Morgan Le Fay and Doctor Doom are taking over. But if you read the tie-in books, that's not even Doctor Doom. So, there's not a lot of consistency or commingling of ideas within any of the tie-in books. You just broke up a book's run for no reason. But I digress, because they go into this future where the defenders are trying to stop Morgan Le Fay, and yeah, they're really bad at it. They all die. So Wolverine and Susan, they cause this world to get completely messed up too, and they go back again, and they're like, okay, we need a better plan. Even though they were warned by that future Howard Hughes asks Tony, don't do this again. But they do it again, and this time they like hypnotically suggest to him. He puts in a program into the first iteration of Ultron that not even he knows about, but that he will find out about when he needs to activate it. And so we come back to before any of this started, and technically in Avengers number 0, because that's where like the first prelude to this is. The Avengers have found basically Ultron come back from space, the most powerful one, but still at a weakened state. And Hank Pym comes back, saves the day, turns on the antivirus thing, and Ultron is stopped. Now Hank Pym has to deal with the fact, like, oh, I created this thing, the existential crisis of that. He starts the AI Avengers. Cool. End of story. I don't feel any of these like plot points come together at all. It's all over the place. I did not care for it. It's all over the place. It just felt like there's too many ideas, and they didn't want to stick to one idea. It might have been a little cliche, but I would have liked better to stay within, the destroyed past or something. I don't know. There's something within that I feel makes a more compelling story. Because when they go into the second future, I just completely checked out. I'm like, this is not why I got into the book, and all of a sudden it's this, and it's really not as interesting. It doesn't even look as well. I do not like the second artist compared to Brian Hitch in the first half. It just seems kind of hollow. Another final thing that I want to bring up is that even though this is about Ultron, and Hank Pym is a pivotal plot point, we do not see him for a majority of this book. I think this story would have been a little more interesting if it had Hank be the focal point of stopping Ultron and moving the plot forward from the beginning. Maybe instead of Tony Stark surviving the first wave and being one of the Resistance, it could have been Hank, and it could have been Hank and Wolverine, or Hank and Susan going back in time and trying to reason with himself. But even he knows that he can't stop himself from being curious. He's always gonna try to do the thing that people will tell him not to do. There's a story here that I feel could have been elaborated on, could have been something right, but we did not get it here. And so that's why this is one of my least favorite major Marvel crossovers, at least in the modern age. I probably got to read some more of them. But yeah, that was everything I have to say about it. And thank you for listening. This was whatever my show's called. Comic Mistakes. This was Comic Mistakes. Alright. Later.